one thing is that we always knew we had in our pocket the option to do these introductions in gameplay. And when we get to Terran's part of the discussion, I think you're going to see that what his team was able to do with those intros was way more expansive than what we had planned. So it all worked out really well in my view. And frankly, this movie was called Cataclysm. So we felt the need to really bring the Cataclysm. We had a lot on our plate as it was. Anyway, while all that was going on, our team of intrepid concept artists was trying to answer the next big question, which is, what does Deathwing look like? Now, Deathwing had been pretty well established in lore, of course, the novels, but he'd never actually been depicted visually in that much detail. I mean, everybody knows the little thumbnail and some of the cool Chris Metzen drawings, but to have a really comprehensively epic design for Deathwing, that was one of our top priorities. Again, we we had this brief blue sky period where we encouraged the concept artists to go crazy and just draw all kinds of cool dragons. We wanted Deathwing to be, nasty and aggressive and unique looking, but we also looked very hard at Syndragosa and the other WoW dragons because we wanted Deathwing to have their DNA, to feel like part of that family. Let me see what else we got going here. Ah, yes, Deep Home. Cinematics was also encouraged to take point on developing the look of Deathwing's lair in Deep Home, since that portion of the game was still in the early stages of development. It usually takes us about a year to do a WoW intro, so we need to get out in front of the game as soon as possible. In this case, the idea that developed was that millennia ago, the Titans had created this majestic chamber defined by these towering columns. And it was beautiful until Deathwing showed up and basically defiled the place with his presence. Once again, the game team gave us a lot of help in designing the look of this place, including, let me get to it because it's really cool. My clicker doesn't want to advance to that. Maybe the secret clicker could help. Isn't that a cool one, by the way? There we go. There we go. We also have creative development. There we go. There we go. We got these designs actually from the game team itself. And beautiful designs for the cranes and the battering rams that are used to hammer plates into Deathwing's skin. Speaking of Deathwing, let me see if I can get this next one up here. I want to show you this cool concept that came from creative development. This guy represented something of a turning point for us. You can see certain details which made it into the final design, but what this guy really represented for us was an attitude. This guy here, he just looks tough and battle-scarred and kind of crazy. So this gave us something of a compass heading to steer by. We were also really excited about this idea that Deathwing's rage manifests itself literally as this boiling lava inside him. He is the Earth Warder, so like the Earth itself, he's full of the stuff. And he actually needs these metal sutures or plates to hold that molten fury in and contain it. This design here is an example of that concept. Everything was going pretty well, but we were still looking for something else, something signature that would set Deathwing apart from the other dragons. Now, over the course of the Warcraft saga, Deathwing's armor has been retrofitted and replenished numerous times. So for this incarnation, we thought about doing something with the jaw. And initially we went back to this guy here and just started cribbing metal jaws onto it. It was kind of like, well, okay, that's kind of cool. What if we just made it bigger? And so we just kept making the jaw bigger. Until we got to this point and decided, okay, let's show it to the game team. And the immediate reaction was, oh yeah, that's him. That's our guy. Now, There was still a ton more design work to do. I mean, check out all these variations. We were looking for just the right silhouette, the right combination of body style, wing height, neck length. But for me personally, that moment when we saw Deathwing's face in that meeting, that was very, very cool. Design is cool. It's super fun. But as these guys will attest to, it's only the beginning of the process, right? I mean, it's one thing to draw cool stuff, and it's quite another to translate that into 3 dimensions. So, for that next part of our talk, let me hand off this wonderful clicker to Seth Thompson.
Morning, everyone. Can we hear me? All right, cool. Last time I was in front of a crowd this big was about 15 years ago in college in a wrestling match with a piece of spandex on me, so I'm a little bit nervous to be in front of you guys again today, but thanks for coming out, and looking forward to show you guys some cool stuff here. So, especially being at 10:30 in the morning, I'm sure some of you guys have the BlizzCon Saturday morning hangover. So I'll try not to scream too loud in your ears here. All right. So, as Mark was showing you, based off all the amazing concepts, the stage with modeling that we had to start doing was to actually take those concepts and do a literal translation of them. So I'm going to go over that a little bit, and then I'm also going to talk to you about a lot of the different lands that Deathwing was going to destroy. So that's my specialty with the environment modeling, but I am going to be representing our entire modeling team today to get into both things. So the first thing to think about with Deathwing is this is the biggest character we've ever done before in terms of small details, large details. We knew he was going to be flying over everyone, all the different cities. He was going to have to look really good from a distance. He was also going to have to look good up close. So we had a lot of different modelers working on this, and so many different people touched this asset. And there was 2 guys in particular that really spearheaded this. 2 of our talented character modelers, Chung and Alvaro. Chung, he was a really good selection for this because he actually single-handedly pretty much handled all of Sindragosa for the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic. So he's a dragon expert. He's really good for this. And just talking about how monumental the scale was of Deathwing, he was huge. By huge, we mean really huge. So this representation here will show you how Deathwing just dwarfs Chung and Alvaro, and he is bigger than the size of a football field. So this was, you know, a really big thing to work on. So in order for us to get to this phase where you see this final really nice textures and model detail, we start with a concepting phase of our own in a 3D modeling process. And this is where we'll have artists work out base shapes, we get art direction, we apply more feedback from these base shapes, get some more art direction, and then we can kind of get a final sculpt like you see here. So one thing to think about with this, the cool part of this studying process that you see here is it's this 3D sculpting programs we use. Some of you might actually do them yourselves, like ZBrush, Mudbox, but it's this really free-form, fun way for us to create as artists with a very limited technical restrictions. So just imagine if you had a box of clay yourself and you can start making forms and have a lot of fun with it, and then we worry about the technical stuff after. So this is the best way for us to get these base forms signed off. The next thing we have to do is start adding all the extra little details. And as Mark was telling you, you know, Deep Home was a big challenge for us. So this shows you an example of where we do things to the camera. We want to really focus on what the viewer is going to see. So you can see in here, if you were to see actually firsthand, we have this low poly geometry. Then we have an art director come in and they'll paint over this again. And then you can kind of get the final look that you have here if everything goes according to plan. One other thing in particular to think about is an asset like Deathwing is so big that we wish we had time to make every single little part of him look amazing. But due to production needs and also making sure that we give the biggest bang for the buck for the viewer, we have to focus on these isolated areas. So that's why you're not going to see a close-up of Deathwing's ankle, because we just don't need to spend a lot of time on it. And then, you know, in the end, you'll get this really nice look like you saw here. So before I get into the environments, what I want to just talk about is how creating Deathwing was a unique situation where we had a lot of creative freedom, meaning I don't think we'd really fleshed out and complete 100% before the capacity what Deathwing was going to look like in its entirety. So we got to work a lot with the dev team, as you saw, with the jaw getting bigger and bigger. And it was this really fun organic creation process. Now, when we're moving into the World of Warcraft, the lands, we know all of you players out here recognize the different structures that are in the game. So it was very critical that we made sure that everything that we create in our cinematic world represents the stuff that you guys see as players every day when you're in the game itself. So a good example of this to start with is Darkshore. And what I want to focus on here is where we take things with heightened realism